Welcome back, America. Dr. Michael Oren was the ambassador of Israel to the United States. He is now a fellow at the Wilson Center, but I find him in Israel today. Dr. Oren, welcome back. That's good news for the Wilson Center. Rob Lutwak, I don't know if he's there anymore, but was my friend for years. Jane Harmon, I think, is retired as well. Who's running the Wilson Center now?
Yeah. Ambassador Mark Green.
Oh, very good. Oh, very good. Well,
Good man.
congratulations on
Very
that.
good.
But I rather than just talk about the Wilson Center, will you explain what the heck's going on in Syria? Because I've read a lot of different things. I saw a lot of horrific pictures and stories, but I don't know what to believe.
What's going on in Syria, Hugh, is what inevitable was going to happen in Syria. All right, Syria, a country created by the French to serve French interests, cobbled together all these different ethnicities that didn't get along. The only way Syria ever was held together was by preponderance of central brutal force, like the Assad family. The minute you remove that force, the country falls apart into various ethnic groups who begin to fight with one another. So now you have the Druze fighting the Sunnis, you have the Alawites fighting the Sunnis. And, you know, from our perspective, I think it's in Israel's interest, it's in the interest of the Middle East and America, that Syria breaks up into little states that can't threaten their neighbors, because ever since Syria came into being, it did nothing but threaten its neighbors, and Israel's not the only one. And this was inevitable because the guys who ousted Assad and his army aren't going to be the same type of rulers that Assad was. They just don't have it. And it's absolutely inevitable what's happening. Tragic.
So there are two things I saw that I wanted to ask you. The first is that Israel has pledged to protect the Druze communities in the suburbs of Damascus, which I think would be a good thing. It's not that far from Israel. And the second, which I can't believe, is that the new government agreed with the Kurds that the Kurds could run their own place. Is that Turkey does not like the Kurds? I can't imagine that happening.
Yeah, I don't know. Go figure what's going on in Syria in that way. It's gonna break apart unless somebody emerges and says, as Assad did. He and his father said the same thing. You are a Syrian. You have your loyalty to me. If not, I'm going to kill you. And that's how Syria was held together.
So what about the Druze and the Israelis for whom there is a special relationship?
Special relationship, we'll do our best to defend them. They're in Damascus. It's not as if they're adjacent to us. There's some areas that are closer to us. I was actually with a Druze friend today and talking about this, the degree to which we can actually help them. He was rather skeptical of the degree to which, really physically, militarily, we can help the Jews, other than saying to these new Tahrir people in Damascus, saying, don't you dare harm the Druze.
Okay, now moving down south to Gaza, our new special envoy on hostage affairs may have gotten carried away with himself. I think that's what, without embarrassing him, Team Rubio is trying to say, is that he embarrassed us and we're sorry. Is that how you understand it?
I do. I think they're already walking it back. Yesterday was a delicate day because, the last thing anybody needs right now is an open altercation between Israel and the Trump administration. We've been working hand in glove and really making a big impact on the Middle East by not showing daylight to our common enemies. And what happened in the last couple of days was daylight, very blinding daylight. And it generally not just Israelis. People in the administration were disturbed by the reports that of direct talks between the United States and Hamas, which is a tremendous, tremendous victory for Hamas. You can't imagine what a victory that is. And the question is, did the United States get anything back for it? I mean, did Hamas have to give anything in order for that recognition? And there are many other things that were said about, Hamas being nice guys and Hamas willing to lay it down its arms, and left a lot of us scratching our heads. I'll tell you something, probably the worst criticism I could have is that it reminded me of President Obama in 2010.
Right.
I can't say anything worse about somebody.
No, that's it. All right. Let me ask you about a story that I covered on a special report on Friday night when I was in D.C. for one night before I got sick. I noticed that a B-52 flew a special mission with an Israeli F-35 and an Israeli F-15. Yep. That told me a lot. What did it tell you?
It told me that there's a military option on the table and that it's real, and which is a very important message. Now, at the same time, the reports that President Trump had written a letter to the Supreme Leader, to Khamenei, in his first week in office. The president wrote to the Supreme Leader of Iran saying that he's want to negotiate. Now, I always assumed that President Trump wants to negotiate, but that sort of brought me back to 2009 when the first thing that President Obama did his first week in office was to write this very similar letter to the supreme leader. I just think their approach is going to be very different. And Obama tried to incentivize, i.e., buy the Iranian cooperation on a nuclear negotiation. I think that President Trump will impose punishing sanctions on Iran, and if the Iranians, if they come to the table, will come to the table begging for an agreement, which would,
in
I
fact,
think, be good.
That's what he said this morning. Let me play this for you, Michael Oren. Cut number 11. Donald Trump on Fox this morning with Maria Bartiromo
There are
talking
two
about
ways
Iran.
Iran can be handled, militarily or you make a deal. I would prefer to make a deal because I'm not looking to hurt Iran. They're great people. I know so many Iranians from this country.
Well, not the leadership.
No, not the leadership.
The
no,
people.
They're very evil people. No, but the people of Iran are great people. But they had a tough regime, and they'd meet and they'd be shot in the streets. I mean, it was a tough deal. But I would rather negotiate a deal. I'm not sure that everybody agrees with me, but we can make a deal that would be just as good as if you won militarily.
Let me stop there, Michael. I think that's true, but they'd have to throw open every single door on instant notice for Americans to look and Israelis to look, even if they're there along with the Americans. I don't think Iran's going to do that, but they could do it, right?
I think any agreement that doesn't provide for the dismantling of Iran's nuclear program will be very problematic for the state of Israel. Because if it's not dismantled, the Iranians will cheat. They'll cheat, they lie, that's what they do. And you may buy some time with that, but you're only going to be buying time. You have to have a verified dismantling of the nuclear program.
But they're not even going to get to step one, which is open the door. That's why I start with that. Because we know where that in the last time we had a deal with the JCPOA, they took like half the country and said you can't go here. So they're not going to open the doors.
No, they're not. And some they may open up doors, but they'll be false doors. They're not going to open up the real doors.
So there's really one option. There's really one option. And that B-52
is looking very good. That B-52 is looking very good.
Dr. Oren with the Wilson Center. Great to talk to you.